Morning, everyone. We're going to start with our subcommittee reports. In the absence of our chairman, Chris Head, we're going to have our esteemed leader, Chair Jay Lefwich, do the subcommittee report for number one. Welcome to the last elections meeting for the 2023 session. And we'll go ahead and, like I said, we'll knock out the subcommittee reports first, and then we're going to take up a bill that was heard previously in subcommittee number two. So with that being said, Delegate Lefwich, if you could present subcommittee number one report. We'll go through that first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. There were three bills that reported from subcommittee one of the Privileges and Elections Committee. The first is Senate Bill 944, patroned by Senator Suderline. It deals with filling vacancies in the General Assembly within 30 days. The subcommittee recommended reporting the bill 9-1, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 944. We'll pull that up for a vote. I'm sorry, did anyone want to speak on this bill that was not in subcommittee? Okay. All right. Senate Bill 944 reports out 20-0. Delegate Lefwich.
Okay, the second bill was Senate Bill 1150, patroned by Senator Edwards. And it's really kind of a cleanup bill for the legal boundaries based upon obsolescence districts from 2011. The subcommittee recommended reporting 10-0, and I so move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 1150. We'll pull that up for a vote.
My screen's not on, but I vote aye.
My screen's not on either.
Can we go to these for a moment?
Okay, hit refresh if your screen's not on.
I can call the roll. Yeah, everyone?
Okay, has everyone voted that wishes to vote? Maldonado?
Can you please raise your hand if you need to vote? Delegate Maldonado.
Okay, Senate Bill 1150 reports out 20-0. Delegate Lefwich.
Okay, the third and last bill is Senate Bill 1514, patroned by Senator Mason, and it tweaks the procedure for removing general registrars. The subcommittee recommended reporting on a vote of 10-0, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 1514. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll pull up Senate Bill 1514 for a vote.
We need to adopt the amendments.
Okay.
I understand their amendments.
Okay, so I withdraw my motion, Madam Chair, and would ask that we adopt the subcommittee amendments, which would conform the bill to Delegate Batten's House Bill 2471, which reported from this committee 22-0, and out of the House unanimously.
So
Okay.
moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the amendments to, so was this a substitute or just amendments?
Amendments.
Okay. All right, so now we have Senate Bill 1514 before us with amendments. Was it properly moved and seconded?
I don't know if we voted on the adopting the amendments yet or not. I moved to
Okay,
adopt the
all those in
amendments.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Okay.
opposed?
Okay, Madam Chair, with those amendments being adopted, I renew my motion to report Senate Bill 1514 with them as amended.
Okay. All right, so Senate Bill 1514 is before us with amendments. And it reports out 20-0.
Madam Chair, that concludes Subcommittee 1's report.
Thank you, Delegate Lefwich. Okay, next we have report from Subcommittee Number 2. Delegate O'Quinn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Subcommittee number 2 met and reported out Senate Bill 1431 from Senator Survell. This bill should be pretty familiar. This is similar to House Bill 2289 that Delegate Williams had, which was a recommendation of the Boyd Graves Conference as it relates to the procedure for removal of elected and certain appointed officers by the courts. I think, and I would defer to him if I'm incorrect on this, but I think Delegate Williams and Senator Survell felt like that Senator Survell's bill had a few things in there that maybe they both preferred, as well as the Boyd Graves Conference. And so the subcommittee recommended reporting Senate Bill 1431, and I so move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report. Delegate Sickles?
Is this the differences going to have to be resolved, or are they sending both bills to the governor?
Madam Chair,
Delegate Williams?
speaking to the bill, I guess, the only amendment, they were identical, but the recommended amendment was if a Commonwealth's attorney was the one subject to the petition for removal, then the Supreme Court of Virginia
Right.
would appoint a substitute prosecutor rather than, or a special prosecutor rather than like the locality doing that. So
Madam Chair, so Delegate Williams, your bill has been conformed to the Senate version?
that's
Okay.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 1431. Delegate, okay, all right. Senate Bill 1431 reports 20-0.
Madam Chair, that completes my report.
Okay, thank you, Delegate O'Quinn. All right, so we are in the last block. We have Senate Bill 1427, which is Senator Suderline's bill. This bill was heard on Subcommittee Number 2, but I was on the road and listening, I guess, to the testimony, and I think Subcommittee 2, there were some people that were out that were presenting bills. We had another delegate that was sick that morning, so I wanted to offer the senator another chance to present his bill before full committee. So he is here this morning. Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Senate Bill 1427 seeks to do two things with the way political action committees report. So this is not our campaign committees, but this is political action committees. And one of the things it seeks to do is move them from a 4-time-a-year reporting to a 5-time-a-year reporting. And the other thing it seeks to do is add a pre-election large expenditure, large contribution section, which is similar to what everyone here was successful in the campaign. So you likely had to file 1 or 2 of those reports. Someone on your campaign did. If someone gave you $1,000 or more close to the election, you've got to report that very quickly. That seeks to replicate that for PACs. It seeks to do that both in the primary and the general. Our entire campaign finance system in Virginia is based on a transparency model. Some people have different thoughts on it, but what we have is a transparency model, and we're pretty good on most sections. But one of the big dark windows is if a PAC is created on April 2nd, and they might present themselves as a very ideological PAC, enter a primary, and start making very ideological statements about an incumbent or another candidate, suggesting where they are. And maybe they're successful, maybe they're not in persuading the primary electorate. The primary happens the third Tuesday in June, and then we find out on July 15th, a few weeks later, that no, that group had nothing to do with an ideology. It had everything to do with a completely unrelated issue. One example of this in the fall campaign was there was a PAC that in my section of the state sent a lot of text messages saying that Glenn Youngkin, the candidate, wasn't sufficiently aggressive enough in defending gun rights. And they sent text messages to basically the most conservative voters and the most conservative voting zip codes in the state. And then later it was found out that it actually was from that PAC was financed by a company that had very different interests, not related to the Second Amendment at all, but about energy regulation and what the governor might, if he became governor, what he might do. So it's the sort of thing that we have that example there. The primaries example is actually happening in a lot of states already. There's been multiple state legislators that have found themselves in races where there's very ideological messaging from a new PAC, and then after they find out that it's a specific industry that really is not ideological at all, and it allows them to hide what their true interest is. And so I think with the transparency model, we need to know who it is in a timely fashion in both the primary and the general election. So I hope it'll be the pleasure of the committee to report the bill. I do have one amendment I'd like to offer. I believe council has the amendment.
Okay. Council, could you report the amendment, please?
Yeah, Madam Chair, on line 75, after June, insert in odd-numbered years.
Okay. Are there any questions about the amendment from committee members? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a motion and a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The amendment is adopted. Okay, Delegate Williams, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Delegate, question for the patron. On line 35, I think it says committee shall report any single large contribution of 500 or more. I was wondering if there was a reason that we broke from the $1,000 that I'm seeing throughout some of the other code sections.
Good question.
I think it was because in primaries the money's smaller, but if you wanted to make it uniform, that's not a big issue.
Madam Chair, I'd make that amendment if it was seen as halfway friendly.
Does council have a different opinion?
Yeah. Madam Chair, Delegate, so 500 on line 35 is meant to mirror what's in section E, starting on line 42. That's in current code. So what current code does is if you're a late filer during a general election, you have to report every $500 until the general election. So if you filed your statement of organization late, so we don't know who you are, you have to report every 500. So this just mimics it for the primary as well.
Madam Chair, I had the inverse in my brain, so I will withdraw my motion, and I'd like it to remain as matching as possible.
Delegate Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the patron. What I wanted to ask is, you said that this is, I'm looking at the legislation, and you say that it's going to go from 4 times a year of reporting to 5. Could you just share with us what the 4 times for the reporting are now and when the 5th one would recur, or how those would be shifted around?
Yes, so currently the 4 reports are basically quarterly reports. You can just think January 1 through March 31st. It then has an April 15th report, and unless it falls on a weekend, and it continues that way around. I'd be happy to have council explain exactly how we crafted the 5th report.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Delegate. So before it was quarterly, as the senator said, and so we took the June report and we pushed there was a July 15th report. We pushed that back to June 1st so that we could capture the primary or get something before the primary, and then the primary reporting window for the new $1,000 large pre-election report would be between that report, the June 1st report, and the next report. And then we pushed the October 15th report back to September, and then we created a new report no later than October 15th. So I guess we put a September 15th report in between the June and October report, right?
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
Delegate Sickles.
we just wanted to clarify, ask the senator, has anyone talked about some of these PACs having to double report now?
Well, that's one of the reasons why the odd year was added, because, so yes, in some ways there will be the double report in the same way we have our campaign committees double report with the, if you get $2,000 from someone close to the election, your campaign treasurer both has to report it basically immediately. And then they also have to report it a few weeks later in the post-election report. So that would still happen. But because the focus here is legislative and statewide elections, the amendment seeks to make it so that it's only odd-numbered years. So there's not doubling reporting it really doesn't make a difference in the larger transparency issue if we know that you got to check 18 months before the election rather than 17 months before.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Sickles.
So just to clarify, these PACs, existing PACs, will have a different schedule to follow on federal years, on the even years, but it's the same PACs. They'll follow a different schedule every other year.
Yes, just like the delegate campaign committees do and the Senate ones. Every fourth year we have a robust schedule, and then the other times we only report every 6 months.
Council, I think maybe just for clarification for the committee, if you could walk us through, if that might be helpful, how many new reports, and are we just moving some of the reports to a different date? That might be helpful for some of the committee members to understand.
Madam Chair, yes, so there are now 5, so currently under current code, there are 4 reports every year for PACs. This bill will create 5 reports every year for PACs. Additional, so it'd go up 1 extra report every year for every PAC. Then Section D creates a possible new report for a PAC that files its statement of organization late for a primary. They would have this requirement now to report every $500 or more contribution or expenditure, which mirrors the current requirement that they do the same for general elections. So that would be a new requirement, but that would be for PACs that have just filed a statement of organization. That would only happen once in their first year. And then the large dollar contribution, pre-election contribution amount of $1,000 would apply to every PAC, and that would only apply for primaries in odd-numbered years. But it would apply to every election.
Madam Chair,
Delegate Sickles.
I just thought of something. Since the federal PACs can't have any corporate money in them and ours do, this would it not, require the federal PACs to go every year. I mean, they shouldn't have to go every year if they're all filing under the federal system and, it's all personal money. So in other words, we are making the federal PACs do another report that might not be necessary.
I'm not sure this affects that.
I don't think so.
Well, he said every PAC. The council said every PAC a minute ago. That's what made me think of it.
But I don't think we can make a federal PAC change that.
So,
Reporting.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, so it would be any PAC that files a statement of organization as a PAC in Virginia.
Okay.
And that's separate from federal PACs who don't do that. They do report in Virginia in certain circumstances, but they don't have to file as a PAC in Virginia.
Any more questions from the committee? Senator Suderline, anything else?
I think Rachel, would you like to speak,
Any-
Rachel Wells?
okay.
Just briefly.
Sure.
Madam Chair, Rachel Lawless from the Department of Elections. The administration supports this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Delegate Bloxham.
Question, I guess, for the election. The limit. I'm just having trouble figuring out the $500 limit. Looks like to me might be a little low on that. I mean, not to harm the bill, but I don't want to have people having to report unnecessarily if it's a small amount. I'm trying to figure that out in my brain.
So, Madam Chair, this would just require the Department of Elections to make sort of amendments in their internal system to comment. So I would defer back to the committee what they deem appropriate in terms of the dollar amount. So,
Brooks, maybe, Council, maybe you could help us with that.
Madam Chair, Delegate Bloxham. So the $500 limit is current law for general elections for PACs that file late. So let's say you file your statement of organization after the last report before a general election, and you're not going to file another report again until after the general election. So there's a gap there where no one knows what you're reporting or what you're doing. So if you filed late, current law requires you to file a report of any $500 contribution until you file your next report, just to make sure there's no one sneaking in under the door kind of thing. So this bill would just mimic that for primaries, and we would require that same thing for primaries. But $500 is the current in-code requirement for late filers.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question on that? How often do we have a candidate that gets in that late that they then have to do the $500 trigger? Does that happen functionally?
I cannot answer that question.
Can anybody answer that question? And I guess the reason I ask that question is it seems like that probably never happens, but it does seem like PACs popping up at the last minute does happen. And the 500 does seem pretty low. And if the 500 is just in there in the code because it was a bygone time, but it hasn't actually been functionally used for the last 20 years, I'm making that up, but do you get where I'm going with that?
Madam Chair, Delegate, the $500 limit doesn't apply to candidates. It only applies to late filing PACs. So it would never apply to a candidate, the $500. Candidates have a similar $1,000 large pre-election contribution requirement, or it's $1,000 for the General Assembly, it's $500 for local candidates, it's $5,000 for statewide candidates, but it's, right.
So follow up real quick, Madam Chair. So the 500 that's in the code now is for a PAC, only in a general election.
Madam Chair, Delegate, that's correct.
Madam Chair,
Delegate Williams.
I have a motion for an amendment. I'd like
Delegate
to offer
Williams.
a friendly amendment of $1,000 instead of $500. Now that we know the backstory on that.
All right.
Good. Madam Chair, can I ask a question about the amendment?
Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Would we want to make the amendment in both places in the code?
Delegate Williams.
Is that in this code? Because if it was, I'd be willing to do that. But I don't want it to get derailed, and that might be a get your own bill.
I would rather not find out what the speaker thought of that. He's a great guy, but he follows the rules, and I don't want to ask him what the rule on that is.
All right, Delegate Williams, what exactly is your amendment regarding the $1,000? Is this related to
Yeah. So
the PAC and the?
Yeah. So this would just be on line 35, just instead of 500, making it 1,000.
Council.
Madam Chair, yeah, there's that, and then you'd also want to change it. If you wanted to keep the general and the primary the same, you wouldn't want a $500 for the general and $1,000 for the primary. If that's the case, then you'd also want to change on line 51, 500 to 1,000.
So that would be my motion if the senator felt it was friendly.
I think that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt this amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right.
Move to report.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 1427 with amendments. All right. It reports out 21-1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, that completes our work for the year. Thanks for everybody on the subcommittees and coming in early. Thank you, IT and council and the clerks for everything. Have a great rest of the session.